Hi everyone. So the yeah, we're kind of, we're kind of in trouble here. I'm gonna play this video. People are probably, you'll probably hear it. Let's see this video. So yesterday there was Pam Bondi was claiming that uh, they've seized fentanyl and they had saved 119 million American lives. That's about a third of the American population. And today they they did this. So this is I guess this looks like it's Fox News. It looks like it's a press conference. It looks like it's a cabinet meeting or something from the White House. And here's Bondi. Um, so she's sitting next to Vance, and I don't know exactly what this is, but something. It looks like Trump is in the room, and it looks like the meeting room. It says the White House in the upper left corner. 400 kilos of fentanyl since you've been your last 100 days, which saved, are you ready for this, media? 258 million lives. Kids are dying every day because they're taking this junk. Yeah. Laced with something else. They don't know what they're taking. They think they're buying a Tylenol or an Adderall, an Xanax. Hate when I try to buy. And they're dropping dead, and no longer because of you, what you've done. Okay, so yes, it must be Trump because the way she's talking like that, you don't see Trump. Yeah, just hate it when you try to buy a Tylenol or an Adderall or a Xanax and you just drop dead. So there is so what's going on here? I think what this is like they are taking the numbers and they are just like dividing by how many people it kills. So you get like a kilo of fentanyl, it kills this many people, and they're just multiplying it and saying 258 million Americans, 2/3 of the population would have died if not for Trump. So it reminds me of the tariff thing where Trump comes out and there's a formula, but the formula is complete nonsense. And they go around claiming that this is the tariff bill. It's just based on how much of a trade deficit there is with a country. So they just take a number that's a completely different thing that makes no sense and they use it. And the disturbing thing about this, so the 119 million thing was yesterday. You would think somebody in her office would say, yeah, hopefully, before she says it, but maybe after. Like 109, like first of all, she should be smart enough to say this doesn't make sense. All right, somebody in her office should be saying, well, may 119 million. We could phrase that a little differently, right? She could say something like that. She doesn't say that. She goes back the next day and ups the number and says 258 million people were saved thanks to Trump, and like talking directly to Trump, sir, you saved the 258 million lives. And then Vance's face, you have to watch a video a little bit. Vance's face like cringes a little bit. It's bad. It's bad. Okay, so like she's not that dumb. Like nobody is that dumb to think that 2/3 of the population was killed or would have been killed if Trump did not seize the fentanyl. Like if you sat her down and you put a gun to her head, truth serum, whatever, whatever kind of way you want to frame this, I think she would know that that's a ridiculous thing to say. The problem here with these people is they are in an environment where nobody cares about truth. There is nobody around her who is going to say, let's like say something that it's kind of plausible that it's true. Like even if they're just like politicians and they want to get away with stuff, just being able to they don't think that people around them or their base has any standard of rationality. Like they could say Trump killed 500 billion, saved 500 billion people, and they would just say it, and they know they can get zero pushback from their base. This is the state of conservatism. It is, Trump's meme coin thing. It's like he doesn't sit there. He doesn't have any reason to sit there and think, okay, maybe this is going too far. Maybe I'll grift in a less obvious uh, and less direct way. Because, like, if I'm just too obvious, like, they won't be able to defend me on Twitter. Like, Fox News will not be able to sit there and pretend like this is okay. But he knows that there is no limit. Back in 2015 or 2016, when he said I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose my voters, whether it was true or not back then, it's true now. they do not operate in a universe where there are any standards for truth, honesty, decency, good faith dealing. And this is where we are. And so, you can imagine Pam Bondi sitting in her office talking, after the 119 million thing came out. So she says, Miss Bondi, we have, we have, we have, not, we have more numbers. Like, you look at this. It's actually, you work out the calculation. It's 258 million, and they go, yes, that sounds like a good thing to say. That's like the most extreme possible thing we can say. Trump is going to love it because Trump doesn't want. Trump does not want rational flattery. Trump wants over the top flattery of people humiliating themselves. And there is nobody in conservative media or on the right who is disturbed by this, who is going to say, wow, it matters. Like, I'm going to criticize you because some things are true and some things are false. There's no limit, right? It's like the Biden thing. I mean, I'm just sick of these comparisons because when Biden was, clearly losing his mind, and people like Ezra Klein and Nate Silver were talking about it, um, and some Democrats would deny it. But after the first debate, then basically most Democrats, either they were calling on Biden to resign, or to step away from the presidential race, or they were like embarrassed, right? If you were still defending Biden, like most people who were defending Biden were embarrassed. They had some capacity for shame. There's something like there's some appreciation of truth, some basic human decency left left on the left side of the political spectrum. And on the right, there's nothing. She could say 119 million. She could say Trump saved one third of the population in the first 100 days. She can up it to two-thirds of the population the next day. She could start claiming that Trump saved more people than live in the United States. And zero. Anyone who is still a Republican influencer, who is still a on social media or still defending Trump, will defend him, because it's at this point that, it's at the point that, like, you defended the tariff insanity, you defend the January 6th, you defend all the lies, you defend the MS-13 tattoo thing, which Trump just made a fool out of his supporters because they were saying no, it was obviously supposed to be Photoshop, and Trump comes out and says no, it's real. It was there, and he yells at the reporter for suggesting it was Photoshop, which was the defense of Trump that his supporters were using. There's no limit at this point. And this is what's so frightening. This is what makes, like, the decision over whether to be opposed to this government so easy, because there is, like, no place you could see where these people can get off the Trump train. There's just no way. Like, when he sends Abrego Garcia to a camp in El Salvador, and he sends these Venezuelans, hundreds of them, and most of them have no criminal record or no evidence, and the people these rightists defended 100%. You sit there and you think, okay, well, those aren't citizens, so maybe citizenship is a line, and maybe it is a line for some people, but for the MAGA movement, it's not. The MAGA movement has no limit. Like, maybe it has some limit, but we haven't. There's things that should be beyond anyone's line that Trump has crossed again and again. So, like, Trump sends people to El Salvador who are American citizens. You can't imagine. I can't imagine anyone. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, who exactly is the person who supports Trump now who would not defend that, and I can't think of a single person. Right. I mean, people have talked about, like, they've criticized, like, the free press, and they'll push back. They'll push back on many things. You can criticize, I think, the free press for maybe not being kind of taking this seriously enough. Um, but yeah, I'm thinking somebody who doesn't criticize Trump right now, who would start criticizing him, if he did things that were even more extreme. And it's just kind of, it's very difficult to imagine. So yeah, we're in a kind of very dark place. We have 4 more years of a movement where you have this madman at the top, and before, he was surrounded by reasonable people who could have been in a different administration, people who are the kinds of people who have always staffed the American federal government. Not that psychologically different from a George Bush appointee or a Clinton appointee. And things can generally be okay. Like, the president can just rant on Twitter all day. He could be a lunatic, and we've seen he's obviously influenced by the last person he's talking to. So if the people he talks to all day who surround him at work are sane people, they can get him to do sane things. And when he wants to be actually insane, they can they can find ways to work around it. They can sort of hinder his his agenda. The This time, you have people who are who just can't even comprehend opposing Trump, who probably are to a large extent exacerbating his worst tendencies, and they're just because none of them have any interest in doing anything else. There's no interest like JD Vance. People will like look at JD Vance, and it's so fascinating to. It's so fascinating. Like sometimes people have hope JD Vance is like the truth teller or the smart person. You think, oh, he's too smart. He tries to he likes to think of himself as an intellectual. Maybe he's like exerting influence behind the scenes. And like, no, he got to this position because Trump saw him on TV and he saw that he was the one who was least ashamed in defending Trump to the hilt. And he'd become friends with Donald Trump Jr. Donald Trump Jr. vouched for him. Trump selected him because it was the understanding that this guy is the guy who's going to not only defend me, but defend me without any hesitation, and without any sense of embarrassment. And so, if Vance stands up to Trump within the White House, what's Vance's incentives? First of all, Trump might start getting mad at him. Okay, maybe like he ends up being hated by and hating everyone. So like Trump will always go, "Oh, John Bolton, what a joke! H.R. McMaster, blah blah blah," and it's like you hired all these people. So that's the norm in the first administration. Trump hires people. They realize he's crazy. He hates them. Vance doesn't want that. Vance wants to run for president in 2028. He wants to have a future in Republican politics. Um, he can't have Trump be mad at him because it's a cult of personality. So he's got to keep Trump happy. He might get like a nice, and you can imagine he gets a nice write up in the New York Times. You know, they say, oh, JD Vance pushed back on this crazy policy or that crazy policy, and like centrists and liberals and intelligent people and people like me are like, okay, good. JD Vance is a good force here, but the MAGAs also see those articles, and the MAGAs start to see him as a traitor because the MAGAs again don't care about anything except loyalty to Trump. So Vance has, if Vance wanted to be politically brave, he could try to stand up to Trump in private. Um, but there's no reason to think that he he is politically brave. There's no reason to think he wants anything other than power. And 'cause if I was advising him and I just was going to say you're going to maximize your odds of being the nominee in 2028 and being the successor to Trump, I would tell him to do what he's doing. I would tell him kiss Trump's ass, just glue your lips to Trump's ass and don't let go because that is the only way anyone has any future in Republican politics. And the same goes for everyone else, for Stephen Miller, for all of these people. Some of these people are just such jokes, like Peter Navarro. Peter Navarro and Cash Patel. These people are only there because they will do Trump's bidding and because they worship Trump. And they, in Navarro's case, he shares Trump's stupid instincts uh, on trade. And so there's no reason for anyone to ever, this is the scary thing. There is no incentive for anyone to ever stand up for Trump. This is what happens to Trump. This is what happens when you have a cult of personality. The ultimate problem, of course, is the Republican base. Um, and by the Republican base, I don't mean necessarily the voter who votes Republican, although he's obviously to blame. He likes this guy. The bigger problem is the Fox News hosts, the people who watch Fox News, the people who follow people like Jack Posobiec and Kat Turd and Laura Loomer. These are all gigantic accounts. Some of them have millions and millions of followers, or in some cases, hundreds of thousands of followers. And these are deranged people. And the fact that they have such large audiences show that they have a deranged audience. There's a huge subset of the population that is out of its mind and only wants the Trump cult more than anything else. And so this like 10-20% most mobilized of the Republican